You are in serious trouble. You cannot do that here.
What? I didn't do anything!
Don't lie to me. We have it on video.
Sir, please.
A quiet murmur filled the cabin as passengers settled into their seats, fastening seatbelts and placing bags in the overhead compartments. It was a routine afternoon flight, the kind that thousands of travelers take every day without giving it much thought. Flight attendants moved through the aisle with calm efficiency, smiling politely and helping people get comfortable. But on this particular flight, something unexpected was about to unfold. A moment that would turn an ordinary journey into a powerful story about respect, assumptions, and quiet authority. Asterisk. Near the front of the aircraft, a black woman in her early 40s sat calmly in a window seat in the premium section. She wore a simple navy blazer and had a leather briefcase tucked beneath the seat in front of her. Her posture was relaxed but confident, the kind of composure that comes from years of professional experience. She quietly reviewed documents on her tablet while waiting for the plane to finish boarding. Asterisk. Some passengers glanced at her briefly, then returned to their phones or magazines. To most people, she looked like any other professional traveler heading to an important meeting. No one in the cabin could have guessed that. Within minutes, she would become the center of attention. Asterisk. As the final passengers boarded, the pilot stepped out of the cockpit and walked down the aisle speaking with a flight attendant. He stopped suddenly when he noticed the woman sitting in the premium row. His expression tightened slightly, and he leaned toward the attendant as if asking a question. Asterisk. Moments later, he approached the woman. Asterisk. Excuse me, he said in a firm but controlled tone. I believe there's been a mistake with your seat. I'm going to need you to move to the economy section. The woman looked up calmly, slightly surprised but not offended. I'm sorry, she replied politely. This is the seat assigned to me. Asterisk. The pilot shook his head. This section is reserved. Please gather your things and move to the back of the plane. Asterisk. A few nearby passengers began to notice the conversation. Some glanced at each other, sensing the tension that had suddenly entered the cabin. Asterisk. The woman remained composed. I purchased this ticket weeks ago, she explained gently. You're welcome to check the system. Asterisk. But the pilot's tone grew firmer. Ma'am, I'm asking you to cooperate so we can depart on time. Asterisk. At this point, whispers spread among nearby travelers. Some passengers looked uncomfortable, while others quietly watched what was happening. One man across the aisle frowned as he observed the exchange. Asterisk. The woman slowly closed her tablet and met the pilot's gaze. Asterisk. I understand your concern, she said calmly, but I'm not moving because I'm sitting in the seat that was assigned to me. Asterisk. The pilot crossed his arms, clearly growing impatient. Asterisk. Ma'am, if you refuse to move, we may have to delay the flight. Asterisk. The statement caused several passengers to shift in their seats. Delays were the last thing anyone wanted, but the woman's expression did not change. Instead, she reached into her briefcase and calmly removed a slim leather wallet. From it, she pulled out an official identification card and held it up for the pilot to see. Asterisk. Before we continue, she said in a steady voice, I think you should know who you're speaking to. Asterisk. The pilot glanced down at the card and froze. The color drained slightly from his face as he read the title printed beneath her name, Federal Commissioner. The shift in the atmosphere was immediate. The pilot blinked, clearly stunned, as if the situation had suddenly transformed in front of him. Asterisk. Passengers nearby leaned slightly forward, sensing that something important had just happened. The woman continued speaking in the same calm tone. I work with the Federal Oversight Commission, responsible for reviewing transportation, compliance and discrimination complaints, she explained. Today I'm traveling for a scheduled policy meeting. The pilot stood silently for a moment. Then his posture changed completely. Asterisk. I apologize for the misunderstanding, he said quickly. There must have been confusion with the seating list. Asterisk. But the woman didn't look angry. She simply watched him carefully, as if weighing his words. Asterisk. I understand that mistakes happen, she replied. But what concerns me is the assumption that I didn't belong in this seat. Asterisk. The cabin had gone almost completely quiet now. Even passengers several rows back were watching. Asterisk. The pilot cleared his throat. Of course, that was not my intention. The woman nodded slowly. Intentions matter, she said, but so do actions. One of the flight attendants approached nervously, sensing the tension. Is everything all right here? She asked. Asterisk. The pilot quickly responded. Yes, everything is fine. There was simply a seating verification issue. The woman gently placed her identification card back into her wallet. I travel frequently for my work, she continued calmly, and situations like this happen more often than people realize. Asterisk, her voice was steady, not angry, but firm. Asterisk, people see someone who looks like me, sitting in a premium seat, and assume there must be a mistake. Asterisk, a few passengers nodded quietly, clearly understanding the point she was making. The pilot looked visibly uncomfortable. I assure you, that was not my assumption, he said. The woman tilted her head slightly. Then I hope this moment encourages a different approach next time. Asterisk, for several seconds, no one spoke. Finally, the pilot nodded respectfully. You're absolutely right, he said. And again, I apologize. Asterisk, the tension in the cabin slowly began to ease. Asterisk, the flight attendant offered the woman a glass of water. Asterisk, thank you for your patience, she said kindly. Asterisk, the woman smiled politely. Asterisk, thank you, she replied. Asterisk, as the pilot returned to the cockpit, a quiet ripple of conversation moved through the plane. Asterisk, passengers who had witnessed the exchange whispered to each other, reflecting on what they had just seen. Asterisk, across the aisle, the man who had been watching earlier leaned slightly toward her. Asterisk, that was handled with incredible grace, he said softly. She smiled. Sometimes calm is the most powerful response. Asterisk, a few minutes later, the plane pushed back from the gate and began taxiing toward the runway. Asterisk, but the story didn't end there. Asterisk, midway through the flight, the pilot made an announcement over the intercom. Asterisk, ladies and gentlemen, before we continue, I'd like to acknowledge a passenger on board today who reminded us of the importance of respect and fairness. Several passengers looked toward the front of the plane. The woman remained quietly in her seat, slightly surprised. Asterisk, today's interaction served as a reminder that we must always treat every passenger with dignity. The pilot continued, on behalf of the entire crew, I apologize for the earlier misunderstanding. The cabin filled with soft applause. The woman lowered her gaze modestly, clearly not seeking attention. Asterisk, when the flight finally landed a few hours later, passengers began collecting their bags. Asterisk, as people exited the plane, several travelers paused beside her seat. Asterisk, one woman said quietly, thank you for standing your ground. Asterisk, another passenger added, you handled that better than most people could. The federal commissioner simply smiled politely. Sometimes the goal isn't to win an argument, she said. Sometimes the goal is to create awareness. She stepped off the plane with the same calm confidence she had shown the entire flight. For most passengers, the experience would become a story. They would tell friends and family. A moment that revealed how quickly assumptions can form, and how powerful dignity can be when facing them. Asterisk, and for the pilot, it was likely a lesson that would stay with him for the rest of his career. Asterisk, because on that ordinary afternoon flight, a simple seat assignment had turned into something far more meaningful. Asterisk, it became a reminder that respect should never depend on titles, appearances, or assumptions. Asterisk, every person deserves it, from the moment they step on board to the moment they reach their destination.